Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm James.
And this is the Decahedron RPG Podcast.
What you're about to hear is the second part of our discussion on the Dungeons & Dragons animated series. If you missed the first part, it's the episode just before this one. So you might want to give that a listen. Let's get started. So let's talk about each of the characters. Okay, Hank. So first of all, Hank was played by Willie Ames. Willie Ames was on Charles in Charge. He was Scott Baio's best friend. And he was also on Eight is Enough, where he played Adam Rich's older brother. He was the middle of the sons. Hank was he was the ranger, right? He was 15. He had a magic bow that did whatever the heck the scriptwriters needed to do at the time. Wow, could you imagine giving that weapon to somebody in a party in a game?
No. Some of the things that Bo did, I would hate to have my characters in there playing it. Lasso 3 people and take them away. Or there was a lever to open a drawbridge. He shot from across the way, hit the ground, and pushed the lever up with an arrow. So the arrow seemed to read his mind on what he wanted to be done.
And what do you think about Hank himself?
He felt like the center of the group. I think he was the prime character.
I think that Hank was the Fred of the group. If this was Scooby-Doo,
True.
Then Hank was Fred.
Oh, that was the other thing I want to pick on. Come on, the names they chose. I know they were trying to.
Oh, we're going to get there in a second. The names make perfect sense, all but one of them, because they're their names, right? Hank, that's his name. That's a person's name. That makes perfect sense to me. These are high school students in 1983. Hank's a good name. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
All right. Next character, Eric, the Cavalier. Eric was voiced by Donnie Most. Do you know who Donnie Most is?
I know the character's name. I mean, the actor's name. I just can't remember what he was in.
Donnie Most was Ralph Malph on Happy Days.
Oh, yes. That's why it sounds so familiar.
And once you know that, you can never not hear it.
Yes.
Now, if you're watching an episode, you're like, yeah, that sounds exactly like Ralph Malph. So he was also 15. Oh, what was his weapon? He had the shield that could protect you against anything and extend a force field around whatever. I hate the Eric character.
I do too.
It's one of those 80s cliches. It's like, oh, he's rich, so he's snobby and he is selfish and he's a coward, except when we need him to not be a coward. Then, he's a comic relief character. They lean too heavy into that. If this were the facts of life, he would have been Blair, right?
True. But I'm going to agree. He's a coward, but when they needed him, he would stand up. It was like a contradiction in terms.
Next character was Diana, the acrobat. She was voiced by Tanya Gale Smith. And the only other thing I know of Tanya, I had to look this one up. This one I didn't know. Tanya Gale Smith is that she also was in an episode of The Facts of Life her character didn't even have a name. Her character was fan number 1 in a special episode with Jermaine Jackson. So Diana the acrobat, my problem with Diana, actually it's both Diana and Sheila. They are underused. It's like, oh, we need some girl characters. Let's make 2 of them. If you took one of them away, I think it would have been a stronger character. Do you need a thief and an acrobat? I think you could have combined Sheila and Diana into one character, and been okay. What was her magic item? Oh, the stick, the staff that she used as like a pole vault thing and to whap people with. Okay, your thoughts?
Just so out of there, but I think it was more to get people interested in buying the unauthored canon. Trying to say, yes, we have a cavalier, we have this thief acrobat. Please check them out in this only book. The only book you could see it in is unauthored canon.
And the barbarian.
I think they threw 2 girls in there just to try to get a female or a woman to actually try the game. Back then, you'd have 1 girl out of every 100 male players.
I don't know. Speak for yourself. I had no problem having girl players in my groups. Christina, Lara, Petra. I had lots of girl players. People talk about that. That wasn't my experience at all. Next character is, of course, the one that started this whole thing, Presto the Magician, voiced by Adam Rich from, we already talked about it, from Eight is Enough, from Code Red. My problem with Presto is the names. We were talking about the names we gave everyone. I said they made perfect sense because they're high school students in 1980s America. Those are names that a person should have in 1980s America, except for Presto. Who the heck is named Presto? How many Prestos have you ever met in your entire life?
I would say none at all.
None. You've already talked about his magic. Everything comes from the hat. A, that was because of the Satanic Panic. B, he's another comic relief character because the magic never works. And I understand that the magic can't work because if it worked too well, every episode would have been over in the opening scene. I thought they leaned too heavily into that joke, and I didn't like it. I would have liked a more competent magic user, at least as competent as the girls.
I'm going to agree on that. Competent, maybe not. Okay, let me open my hat and close my eyes and say a couple words and hope something useful comes out of the hat. It just was a wrong play. You should at least had it where maybe his magic should have been a little less powerful, but at least have something. He knows what's coming out of the hat, just not let me stick my hand in and hope that this comes out.
Maybe make it a little more Vancian, like he can only use the hat once or twice per episode or something. Oh, I've already used it or whatever. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Next character, Sheila the Thief, voiced by Kitty Lee. You're not going to know this, but I know this.
Go for it.
Radio drama. I like radio dramas. I just do. One of my favorite ones, and probably because it's the only decent modern one, is called Adventures in Odyssey. Adventures in Odyssey is based on an old man named John Avery Whitaker, who runs an ice cream shop called Wits End. John Avery Whitaker was voiced by the same guy that played Otis, the town drunk, in the Andy Griffith Show, until he died, and then they replaced him with somebody else who was also kind of well-known. The other main character is a college student, genius type named Eugene, and the other main character is a high school student. In the beginning, she becomes a college student as the show goes on. I mean, the show's been running for like 30 years. It's still going. Anyway, her name is Connie Kendall. Katie Lee is the voice of Connie Kendall. Adventures in Odyssey is one of those shows that, provided that it doesn't offend you because it has a very specific worldview, it's one of those that will make you laugh and make you cry depending on the episodes. It's a great show. I love it. But like I said, if you have a different worldview, you might find it offensive. So maybe not want to listen to it, but I love it. Anyway, Sheila the Thief. I already talked about Sheila when I talked about Diana. Again, they're like two half characters.
That did very little.
Yeah, like I said, if eliminate one or the other. Make the female the Cavalier. That would have been okay. Make the female the lead. I don't know. It was the 80s. Any other thoughts on Sheila? Oh, Sheila's magic item was her cloak of invisibility.
Right.
Yeah, standard straight up out of the rule book. Probably the only one that's straight out of the rule book.
You said most of my thoughts already. She was there, and it was more that she was protecting her brother than anything else. That seems what came across.
That is a recurring theme because her brother is Bobby the Barbarian. What a great segue there, James. Thank you. Her brother is Bobby the Barbarian, played by Ted Field, who is now a dentist, by the way.
A dentist?
Yeah, he's a dentist out in California or Florida or something. I looked that up. He was the son of one of the producers. He auditioned for the role and he got it. It wasn't much of a role. This is another undeveloped character. His job is to get into trouble so other people can save him and to smash things with his club. What a great club that is, though. Club of Smashing is what I would call it. Another one that is so powerful, I am not sure I would give it to players.
Oh, come on. All it did was open the earth up and let the enemy fall into it. That's the other odd thing about the whole thing. How many monsters or creatures actually got killed in it? It's basically knocked out or ran away from the situation.
Again, this was 1980s children's television, James, when everyone is harping on the violence in television, how it's ruining kids' lives. You can't have the main characters trying to kill. In fact, there is an entire episode based on that in the network almost in an era. It's called The Dragon's Graveyard. It is a second season episode. It is one of the better episodes. It is a truly wonderful episode. In this episode, you find out that Venger is Dungeon Master's son. And you find out that the source of the magic powers of all the weapons comes from this place called the Dragon's Graveyard. And that is where Tiamat lives. It's a great episode.
Bobby was a true barbarian. Let me smash everything. I don't care what the consequences are. Only question I have, wasn't barbarians I don't know if it was the first one, not supposed to use magic weapons or we're afraid of them.
Yes.
Am I thinking of later?
Nope, that was in Unearthed Arcana. That was the first one.
So let's go on. What's the next character?
Do we need to talk about Uni? Was Uni a character?
He was not a character. He was a pet. I loved it, but again, this is one of the sections where they took their liberties.
You're saying that there is only one legend of the unicorn, and that is not true. And for that matter, there's equine unicorns and there's caprician unicorns, and he was clearly a caprician unicorn. And so that myth that you're talking about is the equestrian unicorn. So it doesn't really even apply. Even though we said we didn't have to talk about Uni, we just talked about Uni. Dungeon Master.
Ooh. May I start on this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wish they would have done more with Dungeon Master. What he was there to be the absent Dungeon Master. He would pop in at the beginning of the show, give you this obtuse clue. The most famous one is you'll know him by his white hair. I always, in my time, wanted to run a dungeon using a lot of these clues and hope no one understand them. But back then, everyone knew that joke. I'd say we could probably get away with it today, depending on how into it the players are. But the clues just were too vague, and you didn't understand them until the end. And it didn't play well, but that's my own opinion.
Well, I think you're confusing the younger you with the older you. And I think as you watch them now and knowing the vibe of the show, you can figure them out before they come about. But yeah, Dungeon Master is just the deus ex machina of the show, right? He's there to set up the situation and coming at the end to resolve the situation. And the characters are just along for the ride. He's the narrator. Yeah, he's up to something. Had they made the last episode, I think we would have come to like him more. The last episode deals more with Dungeon Master being Venger's father and the relationship between them, and was going to set up a pivot for a whole nother season, which I think would have been better. He's there just to set up the episode. He's there to try to speed things along because, again, they're trying to tell the story in 20 minutes instead of 40. Next character was Venger, the Force of Evil, voiced by Peter Cullen. Peter Cullen, speaking of Transformers, was also the voice of Optimus Prime. Some say he is the only true voice of Optimus Prime. Not only did he do it in the 80 cartoons, he did it in some of the 21st century movies. Venger was, like I said, he was Dungeon Master's son. He is after the weapons that the characters have, although I don't think it ever explains why. And there's one or two occasions that he actually gets them, and he doesn't do anything with them other than to let them steal them back or whatever. So he's that villain whose purpose I don't understand. There's a few episodes where the kids are on the verge of getting to their way back home, and he stops them. And it seems to me that he would want them to go home because they keep getting in his way, messing up his plan. So if they go away, life is better. So I don't understand Venger, although I think he looks cool. The fact that he has only one horn irritates me. Last character, the Shadow Demon. Not a lot to say about him other than I think he's the coolest looking thing in the show.
He was a little too shadowy for my liking. There's not much to say. He was just a lackey.
Okay, we are running really, really long, so we're going to shut it down right now. In lieu of our normal closing, we are going to say, Presto, we hope you made it home. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Decahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/decahedron. You can also email us at feedback@decahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit decahedron.com. Remember that Decahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.